they could be taken from us because we didn't have a job. But now looking back and being able to be like, but hey, we never missed a car payment. We never missed a mortgage payment. We never were late on a bill. We always had groceries. We always had what we needed. Like, that was God. And so even though the answered prayer didn't look like we wanted it to, we were still completely taken care of. Welcome to Wonder and Wildflower, the podcast where homeschooling parents talk about all the beautiful chaos of family life. I'm your host, Christine, and this is my husband, Xander.
Did you not know what you were going to say?
Thanks for calling me out, though.
You're welcome. We keep it authentic here.
Yeah. Well, and we're just two people in their home office.
It's slash studio. What are you talking about?
Studio. It's very well done. It's very well done. Everything's amazing.
This? I get compliments on this work.
I know, it's wonderful. You do get compliments on your work.
Well, I mean, direct compliments.
Well, I mean, like, people have told me how, like, professional and amazing our podcast looks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I do nothing.
I got nothing. I show up.
I show up and I talk.
And you even recorded one, like, when I was not here.
I know.
Right?
Because you handled it, you set it up so perfectly for Jamley and I. It was very nice.
Would you... Nice. I feel like you could have still done it. Maybe it would have been more...
I would have been more stressed out. I probably could have figured it out, but
maybe like
the step-by-step instructions were spot on.
You both just set up your phones and
talk. Well, that's what we said. We were like, we talk all the time. This is not weird. So we're going to talk about parenting and stress, parenting through trials, parenting through not fun stuff.
Not fun stuff. How many times do you feel like that we have parented through not fun stuff?
Ooh, well, you and I see the world like so different that you probably feel like it's like constantly like we're always parenting.
Our entire life is that.
I don't know. I feel like this last year when you lost your job was definitely the hardest and most stressful because the kids were aware, which goes into, I think, one of the big topics we're going to hit, like, you know, how much do you share, like, to keep them in the loop but not terrify them, but also, like, because they're old enough now to understand, like, hey, like, we might need a minute, like, you're doing a lot, we're under a lot of stress, so we'll just calm down. I think in the past they haven't known what was going on with us, whether it was, you know, marriage issues or financial issues, so it didn't seem as stressful. Also, we've always been home. We've been in Maryland. We've been living nearby. We had family. We had, like, this fallback plan. And while we had the same fallback plan, like, hey, if, you know, crap hits the fan, we go back home. We're 12 hours from home. And the kids have a whole life here. We have a whole life here. So it seemed a lot scarier this time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't get stressed out a whole lot. So I don't.
But last year you did, 2024.
2024, yeah, I think I stayed stressed out.
But you think throughout at least your time with me in the last 12 years, although I've put you through some very stressful times.
We've been together for 14 years. But
oh, sorry. No, married 12 though.
But we've been together for 14.
But married 12.
Okay, all right, we're married for 12 years.
We've been one.
Okay.
I was actually the other day, right? So attending a men's group, right, with men. And so my homeboy, he kind of started something new, which was guys praying for each other. And that happened once, I want to say back in November. And it seems like he continued to do it. I didn't go to the December one because I wasn't here. And so we did it this month. And I'm praying for somebody, and I ended up praying like for his wife, and a picture came to mind, right? This picture was the same analogy that we used to Judah and Bennett when we were talking about marriage, which was Hulk and Bruce Banner and Hulk being the same person. And so I'm praying this exact thing. I was like, man, I see this image, and I've told my kid, I've explained it to my kids this way, but this is the image that I'm seeing. I don't know why, but I share it with them. And it was just funny because I was like, man, I never would have thought like this analogy that I was using to describe marriage, which was that Bruce Banner and Hulk being one, just as you and I are one.
Okay. So yeah, I would say this year was definitely the epitome of parenting through stress. Would you agree?
Yes, very much so. I felt like, I know I did parent and I had to step up as a parent, but I felt like I didn't really parent.
Yeah, you were here, but it was a rough year.
You were here. So, okay. Let's do this. What are some of the things, don't like go out a whole laundry list, but what are some of the things that last year when I had to step up as far as my parental duties, right? Taking over of being a stay-at-home dad. And you being the breadwinner.
Weird.
Yeah, right? Not a space that we ever thought that we would necessarily be in. And what ways do you think I could have done better?
Okay, so
that's
right annoying. Then that question kind of annoys me because it's self-deprecating. You did fine. Like, you weren't bad. The only thing you didn't do was cook. Like, you did everything else. They were alive most of the time. They weren't mad when I came home. And to be fair, like, I only had to work a significant amount of hours for 3 months. So you did great. You did great. I will say, like, I'm gonna say 3 things you did really well. Okay? Because I don't like your attitude. 3 things you did really well was you did step up. Like, you weren't just like, okay, mom's at work, here are the video games. Like, you could have, because my work hours were like anywhere from 5 a.m. to 12:30, 12:45. So you could have told them to wake up and put on Wildcrats and go back to 2019 where, the TV raised them from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. You could have done that. They would have been unbearable. But you could have done that.
So I stuck it out with the same similar type game plan.
Yes. So you kept the screen time low. You got comfortable with having other kids at our house because there was a time where you were not going
that was stressful.
I know. So we have neighbors who come over to play every single day, almost. And the kids love it, and it's great, and they stay outside for hours. They play for hours. And there's very much a time where you've been like, no, they can't come over until mom gets home. So you expanded your comfort zone, and you got good at like taking them out and doing things. I mean, there was a time where you would take one out, but so you took them both out and you handled it, and you were great at it. You were wonderful. You had them doing chores. Yeah, I mean, you didn't do any schoolwork and you didn't cook. I would have appreciated if you could like make a meal, but other than that,
but can I make a meal?
I mean, you could have made.
I probably
could have pulled the grill out.
You're right.
No, but I think you did great, and it was part of why working wasn't awful for me, because I knew you were doing great. I knew you were handling it. I wasn't worried. I wasn't stressed out about them. I don't know that you could have done any better, considering that it's something we never thought would be our life.
This is true information, because I really did not.
I really did not either. I really did not. And we never want to go back to it. So we're going to keep things the way they are.
So let's rewind a little bit. Right? So what was that? I think that was the end of March where...
It was earlier in March. I want to say it was like...
It wasn't the beginning of March.
It wasn't the beginning, because you took Jude on his trip for his birthday. I think it was a week, maybe 2 weeks after that. It was very quickly after that.
That's like the 3rd week of March.
Okay.
And so I get that news, right? Have the conversation, which is very odd. I won't go into that story. But I get the news. I digest it. I don't even know. Did I tell you? I don't know if I told you immediately.
You did. I don't even know that you digested it, because I left the house when you were on a call. And I was at 2 stop signs down. Like, I turned off our road, turned onto the next road when you called me and told me. And so I turned around and came back. And
so you were headed somewhere?
Yeah, I think we were going to the library or something. And so I don't really think you digested it. And I think you kind of like digest it with us and the kids.
How do you feel like that was? Because, okay, I'm going to believe you because my memory is usually shot, right? And so I tell you and bring the kid, or you come back home, and I think you and I talk about it a little bit first. I mean, a significant amount of time did not go by. Like I don't think I finished the work day.
No.
But we brought the kids into the office, right? / studio. We sit them down and we tell them, you know, that, hey, I'm getting laid off. What that means. We don't even have a real plan at that time, right? No. But we're telling them, hey, these are the things that where Dad's going to be looking for a job and pursuing real estate, and so hey, it's on the 25 list. But do you feel as if, so looking back, right, in retrospect, that we may have overshared or undershared with them at that time?
No, I think we shared enough. I think telling them what was going on was important because we were going to be stressed out. We were going to be emotional. And while it is our job to regulate our own emotions, when you throw parenting into the mix and we have two super sensitive children, one that's like highly, highly sensitive, there's just a lot of emotion, and there's a lot of when they're used to me being around all the time, and there's just all the time.
Yeah.
They needed to know that there might be times where we need to like take a break, and it has nothing to do with them. They are perfect and wonderful. We are overwhelmed. We are emotional. And they're old enough to know, like, hey, we're not going to go out to eat this week because, yes, Daddy is getting a paycheck, but we need to save that paycheck. Or, you know, we didn't do surf camp this year because it's insanely expensive, and we just didn't know what the summer was going to look like. So I think it was important to tell them what was going on. Maybe, if anything, we could have opened lines of communication more, like how we do with, like, sex and stuff, where we're, like, randomly be like, hey, do you guys have any questions? Or because I found out after you got a job that they were concerned that they could be taken from us because we didn't have a job.
Which one voiced that?
I think it was Jay. Because I think he internalized it a little bit and didn't talk about it.
Yeah, I feel like it affected him a good bit.
Oh, yeah. Not the whole like getting taken from us thing, but
but just
the job loss.
Yes.
Yeah. And like I feel like had I said like back in April, like, hey, do you guys have any questions or concerns? And had they brought that up, we could have put their mind at ease that was never going to happen. We always had, you know, family and help, and we literally never went without at all.
Yeah.
And they still got most of their wants. Like, it was, looking back, nothing really changed a whole lot. At the time, it seemed terrifying.
It was our head.
It was in our minds. So yeah, I think it's important to share age-appropriate knowledge. They didn't need to know all the back-end stuff that you were doing or how you were going to get a job or how we were, you know, paying the bills or whatever. But we did like let them in on like, hey, this is what we have in savings. This is how we're going to pay for this. This is because we didn't want them to be scared that we were going to lose the house or lose whatever.
Plus, I think our oldest one, he operates better when he has more of a fuller picture.
Yes, I think they both.
Which is because it's not real life at the same time, right? As in, I don't have a fuller picture. Like my picture is very, very limited. I may think that, hey, this may happen, or I may have an intuition that something may occur in a positive or negative light, but I don't really have a big picture.
Well, and I think we told them that too. Like, we don't know. We don't know what's happening. And I remember you coming to me at one point, and it was probably in the summertime, and you were like, you were upset, and you were like, I just don't know what we'll say to them if every night they're praying that you get a job that's bigger and better, and it's not happening. And I was like, that's just part of it sometimes. Like, it's
really tough for me, because for them, and regardless, you know, whatever that it may be, whatever that it may be, that I don't want their belief in
Faith.
their belief within Abba, within Yeshua. I don't know why. I don't know, but I don't want their faith within Him to be shaken when something does not occur. And yes, that is real life, because hey, we pray things, right, and wish for things that don't usually happen, right? But it really got to me as far as them being let down, so to speak, right? When that's what we push for a lot, right? Is at least our belief within Him, right? And those characteristics that we instill within them, right? And I think about in this moment of, hey, Santa Claus isn't real, like just telling them how Santa Claus isn't real, Easter Bunny isn't real, like all those things, right? But this one that you cannot see, that we talk about, and that I feel as if that we can feel from time to time, and that we experience that, hey, He is real, right? And so I didn't want a detriment to happen, which I guess is not really my responsibility.
No.
Right, my responsibility is just to make them aware at that point. So,
but I think it was good. I mean, either way, they're going to go through life, and there's going to be times where they're not going to get what they want. And the fact that we waited 8 months before you did get a job, and it's not way more glamorous or anything like that. But now looking back and being able to be like, but hey, we never missed a car payment. We never missed a mortgage payment. We never were late on a bill. We always had groceries. We always had what we needed. Like, that was God. And so even though the answered prayer didn't look like we wanted it to, we were still completely taken care of. And even, with me getting a job and being hired by friends of ours who knew my goal was to leave them after the worst employment summer of their lives, where people were just rolling in and out constantly. And they took the time to train me and to, give me a job. And they're actively praying for you to get a job, knowing that means I'm leaving them. And just being able to show them, like, hey, one, these relationships that you build are really important. Two, it's not always going to look the way that we want it to, or the way that we think it's going to. But that God is still good, and that no matter what, we're going to be thankful, and we're going to be like, hey, this looks crazy to me, but okay, and just trusting God.
Do you think that there is a way, or do you think that it is possible to overshare?
Yeah.
What would be an example of oversharing?
I don't know. I mean, if there ever was a time where we weren't going to make the mortgage, I don't think they need to know that. I don't think they need to know that fear, because they can't. Again, they're boys. They want to fix it, right? They can't fix it. They can't.
I'm thinking about how I'm like, I have this much money in my piggy bank. It's like, hey,
$57. It's yours if you need it. Or sharing necessarily like, hey, we weren't doing, and this didn't happen, we were fine the whole time, but if our marriage was struggling because of this stress, like, they don't need to know that, they've seen friends and family get divorced, and that wrecks their whole world. They don't need to know that, like, we're beefing, over something that's temporary and it's going to be fine. So I think anything that, one, they can't fix, two, is just too personal and too grown up. Like, it's hard enough knowing that daddy doesn't have a job and mommy hasn't made money in 11 years, and what the heck are we going to do? That's enough, especially because I think kids don't fully understand what all that means.
Yeah.
Both of their first reactions when we told them was, does that mean we have to go to school? And I was like, no, absolutely not. So it's hard for them to think of adult things because they don't know adult things, because their job is to be kids.
What about undersharing?
Yeah, I think not telling them, I think acting like everything was freaking fine would have been really stupid.
So let's just say not just only as far as unemployment goes, right? But just life that goes on.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I think like, okay, in the sense of unemployment, I think had we not told them and then we're saying no to surf camp, well, why? Why would you say no to that? I did it last year. It was great. Or, why Bennett wanted to wrestle so badly and we just couldn't pay for it. Those things, I think it just makes them question, and then they internalize the questions because they're not getting the answers, and then they stress themselves out, and they don't need to do that. I do think you need to be careful with what you share and how you share, and then I think you also need to be available afterwards. Like, hey, we told you this big upsetting news. Now you're free to talk to us whenever you want to about it, and not get bothered and annoyed by
and check in with it.
And check in. I think we could have done better at checking in and seeing how things were going. There was a few times where a kid would melt down and then it would come out, well, I'm just worried. But yeah, I definitely think you can undershare. I think, especially at our kids' ages. I mean, when you lost your job when they were 2 and 4, they didn't even know that. They don't care.
Yeah.
That means nothing to them. But at 8 and 10, it's a big deal, and it's something they can wrap their heads around.
Do you ever feel as if your parents, or does anything stick out in your mind of a time where your parents undershared or overshared with you?
Yes. I'll give like a pretty, like, not put their business out there. I had no idea my parents drank until I was 21. And that blew my freaking mind. I might have been 19. I was 19 because we were in Australia and my dad had a beer. And I was like, Dad drinks beer? And like now I know that
How
he
old were
drinks
you?
19.
So you're 19.
I'm 19. And my mom doesn't really drink, but she came down for my 21st birthday. I was living at the beach and she got a drink and I was like, you, what? Okay. That like blew my mind. And I think, growing up in church and everything, I thought drinking was like so bad.
Yeah.
And
which to some people it is.
And to some people it is.
If you have a problem.
Yes. If you have a problem, or if you've been spiritually convicted that you don't want to do it.
That's a good way to put it.
That's great. Like if you don't want to do that, you don't have to do it. It's fine. But it was something that it like really blew my mind. I also didn't know that my dad said bad words sometimes. And which goes to show.
So how did you find that out?
The Baltimore Ravens. But it goes to show how good his self-control was for so many years. Because I went to games with him all the time.
You know what's very interesting? As you get older, right?
And my mom says like, bad words sometimes too.
It's like your filter just gets less.
Well, and I think it was for me. I think he was like, hey, she doesn't need to hear this. And then it was like I turned 18 and I think it was like probably 21. And he like would drop like the S word and I'd be like, oh. And yeah. But like, so those things. But then again, I think like I try not to cuss in front of the children.
I try. We have a kid that may have a problem.
He just thinks he's funny.
He just thinks he's funny.
Yeah. But I mean, those things, yeah, like they just blew my mind when I did find them out.
It's almost like, hey, how did you feel as far as, yes, it blew your mind. Mm-hmm. Could you put additional words to that? Because in my head, I'm thinking, oh man, that's like almost secrecy, mm-hmm. right? And for it to then be, no, it wasn't like meant to be a secret, right?
Yeah.
Just, hey, I don't want to necessarily expose my kids to that.
And now that I'm a parent, I'm like, oh, like they were just protecting me and just like, because I had friends whose parents like threw parties and were drunk on the front porch. Like, that's not great. So I appreciate what they did and I understand their line of thinking behind it. But it's one reason why we've chosen to let the boys see us drink every once in a while or whenever, and to have wine in the house and it not be this like stigma. Because I think, even though I don't think my parents ever made it a stigma, in my head, I made it one.
That's probably also attributes to the way that you grew up as far as the church culture.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Like, I grew up in, like, good old-fashioned 2000 purity culture. Like,
tell us how you really feel about
good Lord. Another podcast. But, yeah, so I think, yeah, that there's definitely, like, an undershare option. But I don't ever feel like I was left out like big crazy stuff as a kid. Yeah, that's my answer to that.
That's my answer to that. So I'm trying to think for me, because there were like big things that I feel like were overshared, but at the same time, it's when almost as if there's no real good time to actually share that information with you, right? And so,
well, there's big things that we've told the boys, like, we'll tell you when you're 16, or we'll tell you when you're 18.
Right? They got a whole list of things.
They have a whole list of things.
Dad did what? And I said, I'm going to tell you at 16. I guess it'll be 14 for Ben.
Yeah, you have to tell them together.
Tell them
You gotta
together,
tell them
right?
together.
Ben, I'm just like, now, even with that, because there's a 2-year difference, right? And Judah at 16 is a bit more mature, hopefully has a little bit more logical thinking, right? It's like, should I share that information a bit? Like, I know, like, I can't tell one from the other until maybe, no, because Ben will just remind me. He'll be like,
it'll be March 2nd, 12:01. You were going to tell us something? What were you going to tell us? Yes, you'll have to tell them both. Thankfully, thus far, if they progress as they have been, they are both pretty mature for their age. And I mean, Ben's always been able to handle whatever we throw at him. Like, he's cool. He's got it. But you did do that to save face and then tell them that I dated a bank robber. So.
Well, mine's are much worse.
Yours are much worse.
Mine's are much worse. So.
Really?
Like, and you dated a bank robber. Yes. How?
But guess what, Dad? Can you guess? And since they never let me live.
They'll be mad at me?
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
They were mad at you for being married before. Yeah, but you're definitely going to be in trouble. You are. They're going to be real confused.
And like, dude, tell them everything at once.
I would space it out. It's a lot to take in.
It's a lot to take in.
A lot to take in. But I think the important thing too with sharing is just to be mindful of that means that now, so like one thing I kept saying, I think to you during this whole year of unemployment is like, what we're feeling, imagine how they're feeling. Like they have 0% control. Their whole world's been turned upside down. The mom who has been with them every moment of every day for the last 11 and 8, whatever, how old they are, years, and has done all the cooking and the cleaning and taking care of every little need that they have is now gone for 8 hours a day. And even though some of those were sleeping hours, it was important for us to remember what they were going through, and that even though to us, like, they don't have any bills to pay, they're fine. But like, our bills are their bills. And if we lost a car, that was their car. And if we lost a house, that was their house. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's important to share. Not to
just sweep everything underneath the rug, but to address it in an age appropriate way.
Right. Because imagine losing, if we didn't tell them that you lost your job and you're just like randomly crying in the kitchen one day. Or I'm crying, I'm in like fetal position, like crying and praying out to God, and they're like, what the heck is wrong with these people? But because they knew, they were able to be empathetic, and they were able to, I could pull them aside and be like, hey guys, dad's real stressed out right now, like just like turn it down a notch. Or I could say to them like, hey, we're gonna leave, we're gonna go out.
we're gonna leave.
And, and say like, hey, it's a tough day. Like, some days are harder than others. And we did point that out, that some days were fine. And then some days really sucked. And it was all a matter of figuring it all out together.
Sure. I feel like, I was going to ask any regrets on the sharing. But it seems like you kind of answered that question, and you feel like there's no particular regret. You feel like there's some areas that we could have did better at. So I think perhaps maybe the takeaways are, 1, age appropriate sharing, and 2, keeping that line of communication open, as with anything.
But not just between us and the kids.
Yeah. Being able to just talk about it, having regular check-ins with whatever is going on. I agree. I don't think we did a very fantastic job at that at all. I know I don't recall ever asking them, like, oh, you got any questions about like what's happening?
Yeah.
So, okay. Anything else?
I think that's all.
I think that's all?
I think that's all.
All right. Do you have a closing this time?
No.
Oh my gosh, you gotta work on this. You're supposed to be like...
It's been like 37 seconds.
Yeah, I was gonna call you professional podcaster, but you haven't got in like the 1,000 hours or whatever it is to be a professional at it.
Also, I haven't gotten paid for it, so.
It's true. I mean, I'll pay you something.
Goodbye.
I don't know what this was. Did anyone even see that?
I hope not.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, until next time. Gotta hoist them now.